Welcome into week 3 of the Keon Sports Playoff Podcast for high school sports. I am your host, Vince McKee. Joining me tonight, as usual, my right-hand man there, Cole McDaniel. As I always say, my Italian brother from different mother, Dominic Cleary, and the world's greatest chef, Brandon Soderpunner.
Man, are you going to be disappointed?
Yeah, you're like 4 for 4. You've made me 4 meals. They've all been dynamite. So, guys, tonight is going to be more of based on high school football as opposed to deep, conversations and debates and everything. We're in that stage of the playoffs now where kind of the cream puff games are done. Those first 2 rounds that you don't see a ton of good games, those are kind of done now. So we are really in the meat and thick of things. We got some predictions tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun. So before we do that, though, guys, I did this last night. It's going to take me maybe a minute to talk about. This, I think, is really cool. And we're going to talk a little bit later in this episode about our favorite stadiums. So I went back. I couldn't sleep. And I started writing down all the games I've covered. I'm not going to read them off or anything like that. But since 2015, since I began doing this as a stringer for the Plain Dealer at the time, here are the records when I'm in the stadium to cover a team for certain schools, and it kind of cracks me up. Some of the numbers are they vary very much. So it drives me nuts when people say, "Oh, I'm 3-0 going to Browns games this year." You're not 3-0. The Browns are 3-0, or I'm 5-0 going to Cavs games. Like that always bugs me when a fan takes credit for a team's victory they had nothing to do with. So I'm prefacing what I'm about to say with that. I'm not taking credit for anything or taking the blame for anything. But check some of these stats out, guys. In my years doing this, I've covered St. Ignatius 18 times. They are 11-7 in that stretch. The last 8 times they've won, lost, won, lost, won, lost. They're on a streak of win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. At this pace, they'll lose the next time I cover them. Here's one for you. St. Ed's I've covered 13 times. They are 11-2. So I've covered them 13 times. They're 11-2. The only teams I've seen beat them was St. Ignatius in the playoffs one year and Cincinnati Moeller a couple years ago. However, 11-2, me covering them, I've seen them win 3 state championships. I was there in 2018 when they beat Coleraine, and I was there in 21-22 with Cole when they beat Springfield. 11-2 covering Eds. Here is the one that jumps off the page, and really probably the reason why I'm doing this in the first place because we're going to be talking about them shortly. The Avon Eagles. I've covered the Avon Eagles 22 times. They are 17-5, guys. 17-5. The only teams I've ever seen beat them, Avon Lake once, Archbishop Hoban 3 times, and Glenville once. Just a murderer's row. 17-5. Avon Lake, I've covered more than any other school in football, which is just crazy to me. 23 times I've covered Avon Lake. They're 16-7. Now here's where it gets a little wonky. These next couple schools, I can't believe they even let me in the parking lot. Berea Mid Park, I have covered 18 times. They're 7-11. North Olmsted, my own hometown, I've covered 14 times. They're 5-9. Olmsted Falls, this one shocks me. I thought it was going to be a lot better than this. This is terrible. I've covered Olmsted Falls 15 times. They're 7-8. They have a losing record. Never would have thought it. So I just always seem to be there when they lose, which is probably not a good sign for this weekend. The rest of them are just a bunch of dink and dunks, real small ones. But like I said, they kind of jump off the page when I was looking at St. Ed's at that 11-2 record when I'm there, seeing them win 3 state championships. And all my schools that I think people know by this point, some of my favorite schools, obviously, St. Ignatius 11-7, my own hometown 5-9, just some wild stuff there. Medina 3-1. Hoban 5-4. I've seen Hoban win 3 state championships. Now I remember why I brought this up. One last point. Get ready for this one. Massillon. Covered them 3 times. Their record is 0-3. I've seen them lose 3 state championships. So if they make it to the state championship this year, Massillon fans, sorry, I'm gonna have to cover it. We'll see if you go 0-4. I'm sure a lot of people are out there and like please tell them to shut up. But I just thought some of that stuff was interesting because, I mean, if you guys were to go back and look, you'd probably be surprised.
Well, I'm not surprised by Olmsted Falls, and here's why. You typically cover them when they play Avon and Avon Lake. So I would say most of their losses are Avon and Avon Lake for your Olmsted Falls games you've been at.
True. And for the longest time, there was always certain games I'm always at. You could count on it. If I'm not at a bizarre Friday night wedding out of nowhere, or if something crazy isn't going on, you could expect to see me at the Silver Ale rivalry. You expect to see me at Avon versus Olmsted Falls, Ignatius versus Ads, River versus Bay. You're right, Cole. There's certain games I just always seem to be there for. So, all right, guys, let's have some fun. Enough about me. So you all saw Olmsted Falls this year. Avon is blowing everyone out. I've seen them a couple times this year. This is one of the better Avon teams I have seen going back to 2020. I actually think their 2020 team was really, really good. 2021 was decent. Actually, thought last year they were incredible. If they would have lined up on a little bit different side of that bracket, I think they would have went to the state title game. It is what it is there. But they're dominant. So they are blowing everybody out. They're running, clocking everybody. It's not even close this season. However, they're taking on a team that you guys saw recently. I know Cole and Dom for sure. You guys were there to call that game. What does Olmsted Falls need to do to compete with Avon? What did you see at Olmsted Falls? What are they going to have to do?
Pray for a miracle. I mean, that's just kind of how I feel there. I mean, the thing is this: I actually was the highest of all of us when I ranked Olmsted Falls when it came to the SWC rankings. I said that they would be third, Avon first, Berea Mid Park second, Olmsted Falls third. Everybody else had Olmsted Falls in that fourth or fifth spot. They're not as good as what they were last year, but they still know how to run their system. I think they have some physicality up front defensively. Secondary, again, they have some gaps, right? The question is, can you stop Jacoria and Caffey? I mean, that's the question. Even if you have a physical front, you know that Avon has a good line, and they're going to be able to find a way to clear out some space. So you're going to have to really cheat down probably against the run and try to stop him because he's the best player offensively of the skill positions, and try to force them to throw the ball. But I think Avon's good enough to win it no matter how they have to play that game, because they have the weapons, just around the field. And defensively, Avon's good again. So the tough thing for Olmsted Falls is you need a lot of things to go your way, right? You need maybe an early turnover or two that you're able to force. You need to find a way to take the lead early and maybe get Avon in a position where they're playing from behind, and maybe you have a one or two score lead early in that game, and then Avon's trying to sputter to get back into it. And I think that's about it. I really don't think that, as much as we saw Olmsted Falls, Dom and I got to witness them strike quickly against Avon Lake, they don't have a Rocco Conti this year. They have Krabnicki and some other players who I thought were actually playing very well, and I thought they did a good job. And Necker at fullback, again, he's a physical guy to bring in the red zone, and you still have Russell at quarterback. So they have some of those staples there from last year's team that are, getting some touches, or some new faces that are incorporated. So there's good things I see, but you really, really have to have that game start your way, because I think if Avon gets the football first, they go down the field and score, and you're down 7-0, I think it's over from the start, from the jump. So you just have to hope that you either get a stop defensively or you score immediately and you find a way to at least start ahead.
Dom, you were there as well, called that Avon Lake game with Cole. Anything jump out to you about the Bulldogs that look dangerous?
They just execute that offense really well. They're strong at quarterback. It seems like whoever they put at that fullback position seems to be lethal. Offensive line, it's good. Not as big and as fast as years prior. Last year they lost a lot of seniors, but when it comes to Avon, go against Avon, you need to take out your Bible, whatever religion you believe in, if you do believe in one, and pray to whatever God that may be, that you can outperform Avon, because no one's been able to do it. And that's no discredit to Olmsted Falls. They're a good team. But right now you're going against a team that very well should be and could be playing in the state title game here in a few weeks. Avon's that good. I haven't seen them play this year. You don't have to. Look at the stats. Look at the score. Look at the talent that they've returned. So if you're Olmsted Falls, again, they're a talented squad. Habernicki, we're a big fan of. The senior who's really popped on the scene this year. It's just, this isn't the strongest Olmsted Falls teams we've seen. It's just not. And again, that's no discredit to the kids. They've had a good year, but when you don't have Rocco Conti, you don't have that star that can match their star. And I think that's what's going to hurt them at the end of the day.
Well, Avon's playing the best football they have all season. They overcame some injuries. Quarterback was a little banged up there. Running back was, they've gone through a few injuries, but they've come out of it pretty healthy coming into the playoffs here and looking good. Brandon, I'm going to ask you this question about this rivalry, right? No one knows more about high school football rivalries than myself. I love this topic. And one of them, for something to be a rivalry, okay, one of the first definitions, it has to be 50-50, or at least close to it. And the reason why a lot of people won't consider this a rivalry, like I do, is because Avon has won 14 straight times. It's just one of those things. You can't get around it. They've knocked them out of the playoffs several years in a row here. There's a familiarity there, right? But I'm going to ask you this, somebody who's been around high school football now going on the better part of 5 years, how does that actually help Olmsted Falls, knowing that there's that streak going on and knowing that they actually could be the first team to do something? Like, does that motivate them? What do you think they're thinking?
When you talk about a rivalry, whether it be one-sided or not, it tends to become a little bit of an equalizer, right? Let's throw it to the pros for a moment. The Steelers have been significantly better than the Cleveland Browns for a very long time, up until the last couple of years, and even that is still arguable as they continue to find a way to win games. But even this year, Pittsburgh had absolutely no business beating Cleveland in week 2, and because it's a rivalry game, because everyone gets jacked up, they get ready for it, it becomes an equalizer and at least gives you a shot, right? Anytime emotions are running that high, it can both benefit you as an underdog. It can also hurt you if you're on the other side. If you get too emotional, you get too invested into it. It can definitely break your concentration a little bit. It can cause you to start slipping up, cause you to, start, having some of the discipline issues on the field. So it definitely creates an environment where anything can happen. That said, I'm the only one out of us that did not actually get to see Olmsted Falls play this year. But, taking a look at just the results, the stats, how these teams squared up, obviously they played each other earlier this year, and it's an uphill battle. It is a major uphill battle for Olmsted Falls. You try to look for a couple of positives. Again, it's a very well-coached team. It's a disciplined team in Olmsted Falls. They have the offense that can potentially keep up. They've been able to put up points throughout the year. So you got those going for you, and you've got the rivalry, the familiarity of everything with Avon, having played them earlier in the year. That said, Avon has also seen you if you're Olmsted Falls. You're not going to be able to surprise them with a lot. And, man, you've got to play. It doesn't matter who you are, Olmsted Falls or otherwise. The way that Avon's been playing this year, you have to have an absolutely perfect game to even compete. And no one's really even able to do that so far. So, again, anything can happen. We've seen crazy things happen even in these playoffs. But man, it's a lopsided affair. It looks like I'm pulling for Olmsted Falls. I'm always going to pull for the underdog here. But man, Avon is a title favorite for a reason, and it's going to be a very, very tough assignment for Olmsted Falls.
One of the best games when I was calling games was actually me and Cole. I think it was our second game of the season years ago, and it was Avon versus Olmsted Falls at Olmsted Falls. Olmsted Falls had them, man. They had them.
They did.
And there was about, I can't remember how much time. I'll say maybe 90 seconds. And Devin Hunter was the kid's name. And this was in 2020 when, again, 2020 was the best Avon team I think I've ever seen. Regardless, Olmsted Falls is about to win. There's about a minute and a half left. Avon needs a drive, and they get it. This Devin Hunter kid was ridiculous. He was a running back, tore it up, got down inside the 10, caught a little screen pass, took it in for a touchdown. A kid by the name of Jackson Blodgett intercepted a last-ditch effort to stop the Bulldogs as the clock ran out. Outside of that game, they've not really had any close ones since then. They did a little bit the next year in 2021, and that was the one that I missed because, unfortunately, I was at a wedding on a Friday night. But that's a story for a different day. So, my guy Zach Horvath was there. I've read his article about 50 times since that night. I've talked to both head coaches. I've talked to all parents and everything. Olmsted Falls was up that night. There was an interception late in that game that turned everything around. Avon went on a run. So what Brandon just said is true, and you guys said it too, I believe. You can't let Avon score first. Don't let them get up on you. Keep it close, and you might have a chance to do something in the end. You could get a pick six. You could get a kickoff return for a touchdown. The game I covered this year, and I've seen them both, but the game I covered a little bit earlier this year, okay, just to prove a point, was against North Ridgeville, and it was Avon versus North Ridgeville. Now, I'm going to say something here. Avon didn't score in the first quarter. This was also the game where North Ridgeville's quarterback got hurt, okay? Now, that game in that first quarter, North Ridgeville took a 7-0 lead off of a blocked punt. The North Ridgeville offense couldn't do anything, but that North Ridgeville defense was lights out in that first quarter. And once Avon scored and Avon took the lead, it was like the air just went out of that stadium. And then when North Ridgeville had to play from behind, that was it. So one of those things there where I think Coach DeLuca, who honestly is one of my favorite coaches, I really hope he sees this episode. Him and Coach Elder both. I'm no stranger to texting them good luck on game days. Like I'm lucky, I'm blessed to have that kind of relationship with so many coaches. And Coach DeLuca of Olmsted Falls, Coach Elder of Avon, both of those I easily in my top 5, easily. So out of respect to both of them, I'm not going to make a prediction. The one thing I'll say is I know Coach Elder wants me to pick against Avon. He loves when I do it, but I'm not going to take that low-hanging fruit for you this time, big guy. You don't need my help. I'll never forget in 2019 regional championship game, I picked Avon Lake to beat Avon. My God, did I regret it. One of the highest viewed podcasts I've ever done, though, which I just find to be hysterical. So I'm not going to do that again. I'm sorry. You're going to have to win this one on your own. But regardless, I will be there for that one. I chose that one on purpose. They're going to play it at North Ridgeville, one of my favorite stadiums to cover a game. So definitely pumped about that. All right, moving on. Another prediction for you guys, and this is one because you have seen both these teams numerous times, and one of them numerous times for sure. But I thought you guys would be the experts on this one for sure. We have the Medina Battling Bees versus the Cleveland Heights Tigers, and Brandon Soderpenner. I will allow you to begin the conversation on this one. Who wins and why?
So this one, unlike the first game, I think has at least the potential to be a lot more competitive. Another situation where we saw these teams meet earlier in the year, and it was a great one. It was a high-scoring affair. It was the most points I believe Cleveland Heights put up this year. I don't remember the exact score off the top of my head, but it was kind of that stereotypical Medina game. Like, we're going to put up a ton of points on you. We're potentially going to score 50+, but the defense is a liability to the point where we could still lose that game. And that's not something you see often at any level of football. So the scoring was there. It was an exciting game. I know Cleveland Heights had a little bit more control of the game than that final score may have really revealed. But I think it's got all the makings to be an exciting one, especially now moving to neutral sites. Medina is always going to have a shot with that offense. That said, though, when we get to this point in the playoffs, I'm more apt to lean with the more balanced team. And that's going to be Cleveland Heights in this scenario. They just have a lot more weapons in that they're able to control the game in any way that they need to, right? Again, if the running game isn't working, we saw that they were able to adjust against Brunswick and start tossing the ball around more. When the running game is going, it's, second to maybe Avon down in D2, it's virtually unstoppable. So, and Medina, as we've seen, has not been great at stopping the run this year. So I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of that once again. So again, going to be a much more competitive game than Olmsted Falls Avon. But that said, I have a really hard time picking against Cleveland Heights right now. They've been hot. They lost early in the year and have really kind of caught a roll since then. I feel like that Brunswick game, again, that we covered, where they did struggle out of the gate and very nearly lost that game. Brunswick had several opportunities to snatch that one away. That was kind of their wake-up call. And they realized that, like, hey, we have something here. We need to just stay focused, stay on track. And we have one of the best teams here in Division I, underneath St. Ed's. There's a reason we were talking about them as one of the very few teams that have a chance to knock off St. Ed's coming out of this region, which, again, still not saying is likely. But again, they're just the more complete package right now. That defense, I think, has a better chance of stopping Medina than Medina does go in the other direction. But again, Stoddard and that offense always have a chance to make things interesting. They always have a chance to pull it off. I will not be surprised if Medina is able to pull away with this one. but I've got to go with Cleveland Heights if I'm putting my money on it.
Dom, last year with the conversation Medina versus Mentor. I want to say I think it actually was for the regional championship, so it might have been one round further than it is this year. Maybe not. Honestly, I can't remember. It was either this week or
no, because Mentor went on to lose against St. Ed's in the
You're right.
championship.
My apologies.
Yeah,
correct. So it was this round. And here we go again. You picked Mentor to win that game, and they did. How do you see this one shaping up, Dahmer?
Yeah, I will say when I said Mentor was going to win, and I say that history usually goes with the victors, and Mentor has been the victors in that rivalry for a very long time. I think everyone was a little shocked by that, and the fact I was right, I think, proves that I am one of the smartest men alive. But when, it's funny. I keep thinking about this game, and I think Cole will be at this game, correct, or will it be a different writer there?
It's me.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm going to see Eds for the first time. I am jealous you're going to see this one because this game is going to be the weirdest game. Because it's like, so this is going to be like Michigan versus like Washington, right? One team that plays staggering defense and runs the ball very physical versus a team that doesn't play any defense and they just air the ball out. That's football. I mean, you could see the clock getting chewed out every time that Heights has the ball, or you could see 3-play touchdowns from Stoddard in his wide receivers. This is a game where, depending how long it is, will show who wins the game, right? If it goes longer, Cleveland Heights is going to win this game. If it's a shorter game, well, that means the clock wasn't in the favor of Heights. And there were some quick touchdowns. I also can't figure out who's going to win this. Think about it all week. And I understand that we've been saying Heights because we believe that that's a team that can possibly contend with Eds. And I understand that Medina has struggled against opponents equal to them. But I'm going to say it. I think Medina will win this football game. I don't know why. I don't think it's logical, but I'm telling you, it's what my gut's telling me. And sometimes you just got to go with that. And I don't know how to feel about how I feel. I feel conflicted, Vince. I really do.
I agree. If it helps you anything, I agree with you.
It's just
I think they're better coached. I think they're more mature. I look at what happened in Cleveland Heights last year when they were up by almost 35 points against St. Ignatius and blew it. Can they learn from that and close it out this year against Medina? We'll see. But overall, if this game, I'll say this, Dahmer, because you'll actually be at Byersfield, and I know you've been there before. Byersfield is hellacious to try to throw the ball in November, late October, anytime in November. The fact that this game is not at Byersfield actually helps Medina. I think they could go into Strongsville. It's a little further south, not much, but just the way that where that stadium's located, just all of it, they could throw the ball to do whatever they want. So again, I think if this game was at Byersfield, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think Medina would have a chance. But because it's not, I actually think it helps Medina. So trust your gut. That's what I always say, man. Trust your gut.
It's just a weird game, man, because Cleveland Heights, they have everything you want. They have the offensive and defensive line. I mean, they had more people on my all-grid team than Medina did. Medina only had 2 people. In Cleveland Heights, I had what, 3-4 people on there. This is a team I really like. I mean, they have the best player on the field no matter who they play. And that's a fact. And even then, Medina has so many stars out wide in that quarterback, it's hard to contend with that. But then it makes me think, what if Cleveland Heights just goes right through that offensive line? And I understand I had another guy I had an offensive lineman on Medina that I really liked. It's just, it's really conflicting. It's 2 completely different styles of play. Usually the run game will take over in types of games like this where there's the run team and the pass team. But I really don't know. If Medina can score quick and be very successful and not shy away from throwing the ball deep, they'll be okay if they're successful at it. But if they struggle in any way, shape, or form, this game's going to get out of hand for them because they need to score almost every time they touch the ball if they want to beat Heights.
Well, here's the thing. this Cleveland Heights defense is a lot better than people realize. Cole, if you could kind of speak on that, you were there last week, shutting down a very good Brea Mid Park offense.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Here's the thing: we saw Cleveland Heights twice. I had the privilege of seeing them twice this year, and against Brunswick, Brunswick nearly beat them. They shut them down. They were surefire with their tackling. They set the edges. They did a good job. Then against Brea Mid Park, actually, defensively, Brea Mid Park did a good job. There wasn't really a whole lot for that Cleveland Heights offense to do, aside from two big runs from Marquise Davis. He was quiet that game. And it's funny that we say a running back's quiet when they have 11 carries for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he was. It was really being bottled up aside from a 36-yard touchdown and a 62-yard touchdown. Those were the 2 big plays. The other 9 carries really didn't go for much yardage at all. So I have to give credit to the Titans defense, but it was what we saw on Cleveland Heights, their defense, right? And you could ask Chris Grenew, who's down there on the sideline as well, and put the highlight package up. And if anybody wants to go and watch that, make sure you check that out here on the YouTube channel. But that defense was really, really solid, and they were just flying to that football. And the thing that was interesting, and shout out to Ed for being a great guest last week, but something he said about Medina was, they don't have anybody back there as like a running back, chipping as a blocker, helping out as a blocker. Again, you're just going 5 wide and it's up to the line, right? So if St. Ed's or a team would go up against a team like Medina, is to try to get Stoddard off of his point, off of his mark in less than 3.2 seconds. I'll tell you what, Bowser, they had a running back in the backfield trying to help block. So he had 6 guys blocking for him, and he didn't have 3.2 seconds to even work with. And that's not a bad Titans offensive line. Zahersky's a really solid left tackle. You have decent guys on that line. I don't think Medina's line's any better than Brea Mid Park's. I think they're somewhat similar qualities with the line. I think they have a good tackle, and then the rest of the guys are serviceable. They're okay. They're good, right? They can keep their quarterback upright typically. But Bowser, the young sophomore quarterback, had pressure in his face constantly, and he was rattled by it. He might not have been sacked a bunch, but he was needing to release that football quickly, and he was trying to get it out of his hands, so much so that every time he was, didn't have his feet set, he was lobbing it, throwing it down the field. They kept jumping the route every single time. 6 interceptions in that game there for Bowser, because that defense was flying to the football. And then also you had the strip sack from Brandon Caesar, who came from behind as Bowser was trying to scramble and rip that football away. He didn't even rip the football. The honest truth is he just hit him so hard from behind there that Bowser dropped the football, because Caesar's a big player there. There's a reason why he's a solid recruit. So the thing is, I'll be honest, Medina's got to figure out a way to block and give Stoddard a little bit of time, because I think there's going to be no reason why Cleveland Heights is going to be scared to send a little bit of pressure his way and try to get him off of his point early. And I think try to play Stoddard like St. Ed's played Aller in that regional championship game that Vince and I saw, where he had pressure in the backfield, 2-3 seconds in, and then he was having to run up the middle, right? And that's really what they did. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland Heights does the same thing. As good as Austin Knowles and Jack Wojak and those receivers are, the defensive backs as well for Cleveland Heights are solid, okay? So I'm going to say that defense is really good. Now I'm going to say this, to flip this. Medina, by the way, everybody knows, one of, if not my favorite place to go call a game. I love that atmosphere. Just a really cool place where a lot of times we've been blessed again with good weather when we've been there, and we've had these gorgeous sunsets too, setting off to the side of the stadium too. So it's been a great camera shot for the game of the weeks when we've gone there and done that. We've had some good games there too. And the way that they play, it's just so electric. I love watching that team play football. I like going down there. The thing is they have the big play ability to make some noise. And I think Dom's right, where there's a sense of this team has a chance to win. And I think, Vince, you said you're kind of on the same page there. I agree that they absolutely have a chance to win this game. But I think the biggest way that they have a chance to win this game is that Cleveland Heights has to shoot themselves in the foot. They have to be really undisciplined. And I think Cleveland Heights has the possibility of being undisciplined. There was a stretch there where they had a defensive holding call in the secondary, and then they were protesting the call, right? Crowd was going crazy. Players were going crazy. Penalty marker came up in the air for unsportsmanlike conduct. And then Max Stevens, their head coach, is furious. He's like looking down at the official, forehead on the bill of the guy's cap, and he's shouting at him. They end up getting 3 penalties back to back to back. It moves the football like 30 plus yards down the field, right? It was almost one of the 2 longest drives Berea Mid-Park had all night was that one, and it was just off of penalties from Cleveland Heights. Things like that could give Medina a huge chance. The only thing is then I'm going to say Cleveland Heights wins this game because that defense is legit. Marquise Davis, as good as if Medina could play the perfect defensive game, and I question if they can, Marquise Davis is going to bust one off at some point, right? Break a big play. It's going to happen, right? If not once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. And again, he had a huge game against Medina. So I think it could be a close shootout again, but I say that the talent and defensively, that should push Cleveland Heights ahead if they play like they did last week.
So we have a 2-2 split on that one. Guys, you mentioned his name, Marquise Davis. Marquise Davis, a hell of a talent. Fox Sports 8 Friday Night Touchdown, Player of the Year for a reason. You know, I joked around a little bit earlier, but doing this since 2015, I've been privileged enough to see players who, upon seeing them sometimes for the very first time, sometimes as sophomores, which is and even freshmen, which is a young man I'm going to talk about here in a second, I knew, I'm like, this kid's going D1 one day, and not only is he going D1, he's going to tear it up when he gets there. It's fun, right? Northeast Ohio high school football, it's so much fun because we get to see talents like that. I'm going to throw out a few names, then I'm going to get to my question. Here's a few names that I've seen firsthand, and literally, guys, I'm not joking. The first time I saw the kids play, I was like, they got it. Chip Trainum, Hoban, now, well, goes by Blue Chip, real name DeMonte Trainum. DeMonte Trainum, I knew the first time I watched that kid play at Hoban as a freshman, it was unbelievable. And I knew he would go D1 college, went to Arizona State, now he's an Ohio State Buckeye. Obviously, Drew Eller, that took 2 seconds of common sense. Nathaniel Vacos from Avon to OU to Wisconsin. Mitchell Evans from Wadsworth, now playing for Notre Dame as a tight end, just got banged up. Want to wish him the best as he goes through surgery. Stewie out of Avon Lake, and then obviously last year, Lamar Sperling, who I'm sure Dom will be seeing a lot of in the MAC, for Akron eventually. But Lamar Sperling,
Buffalo.
I'm sorry, my fault. Buffalo.
Yeah, you're all good.
So I was thinking about Akron Archbishop Hoban. My apologies.
It's a weird thing there.
You're
all good.
It is. In your brain, you translate.
Yeah.
So regardless, and I mean, me and Cole were sitting there in the box for the state championship game last year when Sperling broke the record, and there was a rumor that broke loose literally while me and Cole were in the box about the kid possibly going to Kentucky. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I do remember it.
Yeah. Regardless, so those are my names right now from this year. Here's my question, and it is this very simply: what one player did you cover this season that you expect to be doing big things at the D1 college level, if not next year, in the next couple of years? And I'll tell you what, I'll give you 3 right off the rip here, all from the same team: Ben Robick, Devontae Armstrong, and Deontay Armstrong. And what do those 3 young men have in common? Well, I'll tell you. Those 3 are 3 of the offensive linemen for St. Ed's. Had to take a picture of them last week before the game. They're just a mountain of men. And then watching them, very rarely, no offense to Dahmer or anything, but very rarely do I watch an offensive line as closely as I did last week. I couldn't take my eyes off that St. Ed's offensive line. It helped that they ran the ball like 85% of that game, but regardless, those 3 boys right there, again, Devontae Armstrong, Deontay Armstrong, and Ben Robick. And if you just want to know how big they are, go right ahead, take a look at my article from last week. they are the cover pitcher. Those three guys jumped right off the page. Now, guys, I'm going to toss it out to you. I'll let Brandon start. Who do you see this year that you just know is going to tear it up at the next level?
Yeah, so when you originally proposed this question, Vince, I was thinking specifically players that are going to be in college next year. So before I kind of dive into that, the one player, and I don't know if he's going to get looks, I really do not, but just the physical profile that Elijah Gray showed us from Normandy, he has a lot of the traits that I feel like colleges could be taking a look at. So again, we're projecting that a little bit. He had a very rough team around him, but man, that kid played with heart. He was on the all grit team for a reason. So I really hope he's able to advance his college career somewhere, even if it's not at the D1 level. That said, what I'm looking at a little bit, and it actually two kids going to the same school for the same position. And I didn't realize this until today. But both Devin Zahersky, which Cole brought up earlier, and then Gavin Grover, who we saw for Olentangy, both going to Cincinnati as tight ends. And obviously, like Grover, we did not get to see a ton of from an actual, pass attack standpoint. Olentangy changed up their game plan against Medina and just ran the crap out of the ball, and that worked for them. But one of the reasons they were able to do that is because Grover is more than just a pass catching tight end. He's able to sit back and get you that run blocking. He acted as that sixth offensive lineman in a lot of cases. And we saw that the same thing with Zahersky. So, Cincinnati likes what they're seeing. They have an idea. They have a scheme in mind that they took both of these players. I'm very interested to see how they both go and continue to develop. Obviously, Grover is the slightly higher prospect right now, but who knows what we see out of them. Two tight ends in a very similar mold. Excited to see what Cincinnati is going to do with them as we kind of move on to the next year. But that said, there's so many players that we're going to be able to get to watch here that are continuing their careers. I'm excited going all the way back, like you said, Vince, to 2015, being able to track the careers of these guys, not just the big ones like Drew Aller, but Joe Labus is another one that comes to mind. He hasn't quite had his chance at Iowa yet, but
Iowa.
But man, he's that offense looks like it could use him right about now. But yeah, there's a lot of really good options here. But that's one that really stuck out to me. A school being able to see two kids that are very much deserving and going to that D1 level at the same position, kind of taking them for that same mold there in Cincinnati.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because Zahersky is definitely on my list. I just wanted to make a quick point about the St. Ed's offensive line. But yeah, I mean, definitely Austin Clay, unbelievable. Punt returner, from Berea, as you said there, obviously Elijah Gray. Yeah, just dominant. And there's one too. I mean, Luke Hamilton, offensive line from Avon. Just go on and on down the list. Ja'Cory and Caffey. So much talent in this area. Cole, I'll let you go in front of Dom here.
Yeah, I mean, let me talk first Cleveland Heights here because obviously then they have two really good guys. I mentioned him, Brandon Caesar. He's a guy who's crystal balled to this team right here, Ohio State. Again, if you put anybody at Ohio State who's an edge rusher with that coaching staff, I feel like, again, it's really a place where you can go and have a potential to at least be a solid role player, be part of a rotation, and potentially, again, be a high draft pick in the NFL. I mean, all the edge rushers that have come through that place and guys that kind of had underperformed maybe a little bit earlier this year, they're starting to come into their own in Jack Sawyer and JT Tuamoloau as well. Again, they're just going to be a part of that added long line. So I think Brandon Caesar, a guy who could really follow the path of a guy like Tyreek Smith, who, of course, played at Cleveland Heights years ago, who then went off to Ohio State and was an edge rusher and part of really a role player there and did a pretty good job at that level. So again, we'll see where he actually goes. But again, everybody knows that he has an offer to Ohio State, and that's at least where some of those recruiting experts have him crystal ball to go. Marquise Davis has offers from pretty much everywhere, right? I mean, he's still a guy, he's got time to think about where he wants to go. But this team as well, probably needs to think about really being serious about heavily recruiting a guy like that because Davis has so much talent. He's going to be electric at the next level. Good linebacker, right? But he's an even better running back. He's going to be a running back when he goes to college. Such an electric threat there in the backfield. But you mentioned some other names, right? You talked about Austin Clay, some other guys there. But I want to give a shout out to a guy who's a junior right now at Olentangy and Jackson Wiley. Jackson Wiley he's, I think, going to continue to get offers coming in his way. Maybe needs to put on some more weight and muscle once he gets to that level. But the speed's there, the ability as a route runner's there. He was a guy who, funny enough, the game we saw, I mean, they didn't really have to throw very much, but he still burnt the secondary of Medina quite a few times because he's such a talented wide receiver. I expect to see big things out of him. I know he had a couple offers from MAC schools as well as Kentucky. I think that's going to continue to pour in here as the season concludes going into next year. I think he's a good player. Ethan Grunkmeyer, a guy who certainly has the potential to shine at the next level. It's a matter of how quickly he'll get on the field. Will he have to sit for a long time at Penn State? Will he stay at Penn State, right? It's always the tough thing with the quarterback position. There's only one that can play out there at a time. So he'll obviously have to sit at least for 1 year. Again, he has the potential. I think somebody else who could be really good at the next level just needs to continue to get some more offers. And I mentioned him from Medina, so I'm excited to see him again. I think Jack Wojak needs some more respect. He's another receiver who he's a guy who can really do it all. And I believe it was it might have been South Dakota who had offered him. But I think that you may start to see some other schools begin to offer him, if not a scholarship, preferred walk-on potential. And I could see him going off and making some plays happen because he's a threat as a kick returner. So I think special teams, he gives you some versatility. He's a threat as a wide receiver. When Medina needs to run the football, he can go in the pistol at running back. I think when you have a guy like that, who's that versatile and that explosive, I think they can do something at the next level. And we talked about all the guys who are committed, who have all these offers. He's a guy who probably needs some more offers pouring in because I think the versatility, sure, there's other guys who are electric wide receivers, right? But the versatility is the huge thing at the next level. If you're not one of the couple starting wide receivers, can you give us value on special teams? And I'd say that guy can give a team almost more value on special teams than anybody else in this area. A great returner, but like I said, I think he could do a lot for a team.
We saw the all grit team, but this is more so than grit. This is next level talent.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys on this list that I will think go next level. I think Xavier Compton should definitely be a guy that FCS schools and low D1 should be looking at. I can't find anything of he doesn't have a star rating. He doesn't. I don't see much of any schools that he's reposting. That doesn't mean he's not getting looked at, but I could definitely see him being a guy that stands out in the FCS level, like a Delaware or Youngstown State. That's one guy that I've enjoyed watching. Probably one of the best safeties we've seen all year. One guy I don't think anyone's talked about yet is Andrew Hanchuk from Berea Mid Park. Big defensive lineman. I mean, he looks completely unblockable. He's committed to Virginia Tech. So I believe he's a 3-star as well. Jack Wojak, I see that he was visiting Cincinnati. We'll see if that is a preferred walk-on, if they do offer him, or if they give him a full scholarship, which they should, because he's a really talented player. One player who I didn't realize how much love this young man was getting, Luke Stewie, 3-star recruit. Yeah, Luke Stewie, 3-star recruit. Right now he's listed at his college list is Miami, Toledo, Virginia Tech, Cincinnati, and Ohio. He recently visited Michigan and Pitt, though. Pitt is looking at him at wide receiver. I do know this because I saw that he tagged Underwood, the wide receiver coach, and Signetti, the offensive coordinator, who may not be there very much longer. But yeah, I mean, those are the players that I really have as players that will be next level. I mean, Zahersky, both Zaherskys, really. I know the offensive lineman Zahersky, he was getting some love as well, but he's only a junior, so we'll see if he gets more love going for that's Mason Zahersky. Devin Zahersky is going to Cincinnati. We do know that. Yeah, Jackson Wiley I have on the list too. One guy that I don't know if we'll go D1. I really don't understand how running backs are recruited, because I've seen some of the best running backs I've ever seen go D3, and they end up breaking every single record at their school. It's running backs. It's a weird position when it comes to recruiting. Zach Barnhart's a sophomore. So schools legally cannot talk to him yet, other than send him a camp invite. He needs to go somewhere. Maybe not big D1, right? Maybe he doesn't have the speed. He is built like a bowling ball. Like he is a missile with legs. That kid. I could see him destroying kids at the D2 level or low D1 level if he doesn't get the opportunity to play at a big D1 school. And again, there's a lot of really good D2 schools in this area, especially if you even go to Western PA. Slippery Rock, constantly one of the top 10 teams in the country. And kids get drafted out of there or at least get signed and get an opportunity. This kid has an opportunity to go somewhere. I don't know where it will be. We'll find out next year, more than this year. It battled some injuries, but yeah, those are really all that I got. I know I'm definitely missing a few kids out there, but
it's all right. And you'll think of so many more. Like when this episode's over, you'll go on to do whatever you're gonna do next, and like 10 more will pop in your head. That's the way it always goes. You mentioned a few names I want to touch on, though. Actually, quite frankly, you guys talked a lot about Berea Mid Park with Zahersky and Austin Clay. They, just to show, years and years of doing this, I missed out. There was a few I wanted to put on this list earlier that I gave you guys with Chip Trainum and Vakos and Eller, and I didn't think about it until you said it. Another couple, D1 talented guys, they're brothers. They were twin brothers out of Berea Mid Park. Quarterback Trevor Bazinski, who graduated Berea Mid Park, and he would have graduated in 2019, and his brother Jared Bazinski, who was a massive offensive lineman, and just a phenomenal family. Bazinski, the offensive lineman, went to Purdue, and then just to show you guys how quickly things could change, Trevor, who broke every kind of passing record you could think of in SWC history and also Berea Mid Park history. I mean, he was 6'6". The kid was a giant. He was amazing. He was going to go to Rice. And literally, when they do that thing, you sit down at the table and they're going to, it's signing day. And you go to grab the hat and you put on the hat. Everybody, I swear to God, everybody thinks this kid's about to grab the Rice hat. That's all we heard for 2 years. Rice. Kid reaches over, pulls back the hat. Boom. Buffalo. Changed his mind at the absolute last second. I mean, the absolute last second. Trevor went on to Buffalo, didn't work out there, ended up playing for Ashland, and is actually doing big things right now as we speak for Ashland. He's doing well. One of them mentioned the Bazinski brothers. I apologized earlier that I did not. As for this year, there was two other guys that jumped in my brain as you're talking about it. One was Stewie, Luke Stewie. I've known the Stewie family for years. Want to shout them out as well. Their dad, that guy is awesome. He's one of the smartest human beings I've ever met. When it comes to football, knows his football like you want to believe. That guy actually played for Virginia Tech. And he played in the NFL. So there's a history there in the Stewie family, in that pedigree. Their oldest brother, Michael, when I first started doing the player spotlight series, I had on like 20 Avon Lake kids one year, that awesome 2020 season. I had on like 20 Avon Lake kids, 20 Avon kids, and Michael Stewie actually stood out as the smartest person I've ever spoken with as a football player. He went on to, I believe, Case University. I'm almost positive he went on to Case. The kid's a borderline genius. I mean, I swear to God, he's going to be a millionaire one day. But one last name I wanted to throw out there before we move on, and it made all the difference the last 3 weeks for St. Ignatius. This kid, I don't think people realized it unless you're a St. Ignatius honk like myself. Cody Haddad is incredible. So Cody Haddad is the safety for St. Ignatius. He missed the first 9 weeks of the season. He came back. They won week 10. They won their first playoff game against Mentor. They were about to beat Canton McKinley. They had a last-second collapse. Cody Haddad, remember that name, folks. He is free safety at St. Ignatius. The kid is incredible. He's a game changer. And I seriously believe, if they could have held on another 18 seconds there against Canton McKinley, they actually would have gave St. Ed's more of a game than people realized. But to its own, it didn't happen.
Vince, real quick,
Please go ahead.
One player that I do want to shout out is Owen Wiley, who is the kicker. He's the kicker at Akron. He was third on the depth chart. Third. Two other kickers had opportunities. They blew 2 games. He went in against Buffalo and he sealed the starting spot. He has started ever since week 5 and he's done phenomenal. Again, he's missed a few really long kicks, but he's in the good graces of Coach Moorhead. That family is phenomenal. They retweet and like everything I put out. They are the kindest people. He seems like a good kid. It has been a blast. I know, you know, Vakos was in Ohio and one special teams player, and then
they were against each other.
Yeah, he 100%. He deserves all that. Will and Wiley, give him a little love too. Kid is having a good year.
So I wrote a story about him, and do me a favor when you know this episode goes to YouTube in a couple of days when I post and all that stuff. Dahmer, please tweet this at the Wiley family, okay?
Okay.
His dad's awesome. People are like, why do you cover? You know, we talked about it to start the show. Ironically, why do you cover so much Avon? Why do you cover so much Avon? Like, because they're good people. 2 of the best communities, groups of human beings I've ever met in my life. We wouldn't have Key on Sports. I'm telling you right now, folks, if it wasn't for that Avon versus Avon Lake rivalry. Regardless, the Wiley family is incredible, and a story there is that even though they were rivals, they were best friends. So Wiley and Vakos actually got together in the offseason before their senior year and started training together and working out together. It's an amazing story. If you search through the annals of Keon Sports archives, I actually have a story about that. Maybe if you just type in, you know, Vakos Wiley, it will come up. Just amazing stuff there. That's really cool, you know. And again, it's funny because growing up, you know, thinking about being a sports writer and stuff, I never really thought about like the players. You know what I mean? Like to me, like a lot of times when that whistle's over, I don't think about it. You know what I mean? Like I think about the schools and who won and who lost and what I have ahead for me next week and stuff. But at the end of the day, these are all real people and these are all real families. Dahmer told me a story, you know, about last year, maybe the year before. I think it was Rocco Connie's dad stopped you in the stands.
Last year, yeah.
Last year. Those things mean the world to us. You know, none of us do this for a ton of money. I'm just going to flat out say it. I don't care who hears it. We don't. So we do this really because we enjoy it. So when those families come to us like they have, I mean, there's no better feeling in the world. I've had food waiting for me time and time again in press boxes. In fact, Colio was with me one time in Avon Lake when a lady came up and brought me all these pulled pork sandwiches. You wouldn't believe how often that happens, guys. It happens a lot. So those kinds of stories are so cool. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many graduation parties I've been invited to. It just you become family with these people. And, you know, I wish we could literally sit here and just talk about everybody we like, right? Then it wouldn't be a show, and somebody would get left out, and then, you know, it never ends. But I'm really cool you said Wiley because that sparked a bunch of memories instantly. So speaking of that, though, speaking of good times and things like that, we all have stadiums that we love covering games in. We all have stadiums that we hate. For lack of better reasons, we're not going to talk about the stadiums we hate going to. However, we're going to talk about which high school football stadiums do you guys absolutely love covering a game at? 2 or 3, you know, Brandon, go right ahead.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really good options here. And I want to start by saying, at least from a broadcasting standpoint, every place that we've been these last couple of years, everyone's been phenomenal, right? There's really not a lot of bad choices. Thinking through everything, I kind of got to break it down into a couple different categories. If we're talking about just overall environment and like the feel of the fans and the energy and everything, Medina's unmatched. And it's not even just the Medina fans, and they always shell out. It does not matter who they're playing. They're always very well represented. The student section is always bumping. But for whatever reason, you know, teams like to travel out there too. We saw again, Olentangy, their fans were incredible. They brought the energy the entire time. I think back to when me and Mike Rogers were still calling games, we got to see Stoddard take on Avon in a huge game there. And probably the most electric atmosphere that I've ever been a part of for a game. Ton of fun to watch. So just again, from an environment standpoint, it's Medina for sure. When it comes to, you know, liking the stadium and the comforts and, you know, setting up for the broadcast and things like that, there's a lot of schools that can kind of make this list. I've thought about North Ridgeville is one that we love to go to. They always take care of us really well. We always have our own little section there. I think about, you know, Brunswick really, really sticks out in my mind. That might be my favorite one overall. We've been there very often. School always takes care of us. They're always willing to get us in. They were, getting us in last second, even at points back before we were doing video. And again, the staff there, the stadium's always incredible. They feed us well. So you cannot go wrong with Brunswick either. So really just a toss up between, I'd say, North Ridgeville and Brunswick on that front. And then just the last shout out that I have to give just from a food standpoint, and I've only covered one game here. It was the Barberton Magics hosting Revere.
Yeah.
I don't know why we were out there even. Again, this was back when me and Rogers were still calling games. It was very odd for us to kind of travel out that way. But for how few people that were there covering this game, because Revere did not have a great team. Barberton kind of ran him over in that game. They stacked that food like there were 40 people up in that press box.
Yeah.
I mean, we were well taken care of that entire game. The field is beautiful as well. It was worth the drive heading down there, but
incredible.
Yeah. But again, man, there's really not a lot of bad options. I know we all have our gripes with individual places or things that may have happened here or there, but man, we're blessed in Northeast Ohio to have a lot of good places to go call a game.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad you said Barberton. That is actually one of my favorite places. It is so great there. The feel to it is next level. It is a hike from where most of us live. I understand that. But if you guys could pull it off next year somehow, I'd say go for it. It's worth the drive. Barberton, they feed you like a king. And I mean, the food, not just the food, like the environment is incredible. Cole?
Well, my favorite place is, of course, someplace we're going to be here soon. It's because I'm only there one time a year, and it's a good time. They always treat us well there. Usually, again, front row seats right up against the window, and that's at the Hall of Fame Stadium, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium there in Canton. Vince and I get 2 seats side by side. I got enough room to set up the iPad and the laptops to be able to edit and stream some college football championship games. And last year, of course, at the same time, we had the World Cup as well going. So we were streaming games all day long, for a couple of days as we were working. But it's a good time. Only complaint I can have there is that it is cold up against that glass because of it being wintertime. So you definitely have to still dress warm, even though you're in the press box right up against the glass. But it's always a good time. Enjoy those couple of days. It's a lot of work, but it is a ton of fun to get to see those state championship games and get to see, the teams, everything kind of pay off from all the hard work that they did all year and that come to fruition. So for me, that place holds a special place because I don't go there aside from that one time throughout the season. So I love going there. When it comes to atmosphere, Medina, I mentioned it. I love going down there. We always, because a lot of times the best setup for us is on the visitor side, actually, for those. So in the credit to all the visitors, of all those games that we've been there, we've had a lot of good matchups where the visiting crowd traveled very well. It's packed on the visitor side. It's packed on the home side. Like I said, we've had decent weather, and 2 of the last 3 times I've been there, it was at least 2 of the last 3 seasons, I should say, we got to cover a homecoming game as well, and then they, of course, shoot fireworks off at the end. So it's always pretty fun to be there for that. Food-wise, I have to say, shout out to North Royalton. Always, they have food. There's never a question on, is there going to be food? Is there not going to be food? Again, they've always got food up there for us, so I appreciate it. I gotta say, some place that it's nice for me, right? Because I'm there at Berea all the time. So if we go cover a Berea Mid-Park game, the one thing I gotta say is Berea Mid-Park, where's the Canes, right? They got rid of Canes this year. We always used to know about going there and we'd get Canes for the food for everybody, but they changed that up again. I think all the workers there, in addition to us, we're all missing the Canes. So I wish that would come back. But again, we get treated so well at all these different places. I enjoy going to all of them for different reasons. Some are for camera angles. Some of them are for we always get a good game there. Some of them for just the atmosphere. In general, again, I can't really have complaints about all the places we go to because we're strategic about where we want to go for the game of the week as well. We pick out places that accommodate us well. and we know it's going to work well with everything that we need to do the stream. So again, shout out to all the ones who take us in every single year to do those games. So excited for that, and then excited for the return to Canton with you in a few weeks, Vince.
And really quick, North Royalton deserves a special shout out. I know you talked about the food aspect, Cole, and this was one of the stadiums that kind of slipped my mind. From a broadcasting standpoint, absolutely phenomenal. We always have our own kind of little section in that stadium. They've always treated us fantastic. And the reason I felt like I needed to say something is back in the COVID year, 2020, when we were just getting really starting to expand the broadcast coverage. We had the two teams going out, you and Cole, and then me and Roger. So Dom, that might have been the first year that you started as well. I don't remember.
The COVID year?
The COVID year. It was the year after. Point being, not a lot of stadiums and not a lot of schools were playing nice with COVID, right? And that's completely understandable, right? Nobody wanted to take that risk. They didn't want to have, strange people coming into the press box or covering games. It was a weird time to kind of navigate. And, when we were running the audio only broadcast, there were two schools that really helped out, and it was North Ridgeville and it was North Royalton. That was the most I've ever covered North Royalton in a single year. They didn't win a single game that regular season. It was pretty miserable up until the playoffs. And then they made a run. They actually won their very first playoff game against Avon Lake, if I'm remembering correctly.
No. So their first playoff game,
Olmsted Falls.
They won against Olmsted Falls.
That's right.
Nicole called it in an overtime, double overtime thriller.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, I'm sure part of the reason that I have such good memories is that run at the end of the season that Royalton had as well. But again, in a time where a lot of things were really uncertain, North Royalton really did take us under their wing. They let us in. They let us call basically their whole season that year at home. So I just felt like they needed at least a little bit of an extra shout out there, and a great stadium environment wise as well.
And before we toss this to Dom, I have to give a shout out to Olmsted Falls, because they did the same thing. Then with that same year, Vince and I were taken in by Olmsted Falls really for multiple games that week. And that's a place where I love going and covering those games. And that is a town that really shows up for their games, right? It's always packed. So we had a good time that year. We've always have a good time when we go there. They take really good care of us and very quick to respond when we ask to go cover a game. It's almost instantaneously. I love going there. The only thing I can say, right, is I'm sorry, those press box windows are tinted, right? and I have to say the funniest thing, guys, is this. I got to say this about this past season is basically that was the one where, again, Brandon wasn't with us for that 1 week. So we had Darian filling in, right? So the one window is open to my left, okay? So, of course, I'm looking through the tinted window because he's got that open. Fine. Then Dom's like, I'm having a hard time seeing, man. He's like, can I open this thing? And I'm like, whatever. I can only see well out the right one. You might as well open it up, right? So Dom opens it up, and he's out there like hanging out the window watching the game. So I'm literally looking through. It's like two pairs of sunglasses that I'm looking through. So I swear, if we had a camera posted on that thing, I would have been looking like this as I'm trying to see out. My nose was touching that glass for some of those plays as I am trying to see through the double tinted windows out there. That is the toughest thing to see through at nighttime. But I'll tell you what, I love going there. I love covering those games, but those tinted windows can make things difficult.
Remind me, Cole, I will bring you a monitor this year so you can just get the camera feed this time around.
I was having a hard time seeing to the left, and when Dom was like, can I open this up? I'm like, well, one of us might as well see, so just go for
it. Funny thing about that, Faith was taking pictures for us, and she came up during halftime. She's taking pictures of the band. She didn't want to be on the field, so she was doing it from that angle, right? Well, the game started, and she's still taking pictures out of the press box, so I couldn't look out of the window because Faith is next to me, leaning out of the window, taking pictures of the game. Cool. Out the window for majority of the third quarter. But Cole was right. my entire body was outside of the window and I was looking around. I don't know why I was doing that. I don't know what possessed me to do that.
His arms were up on the sides there as he's like leaning out, looking around. Got Darian running the camera to my left, Dom like hanging out, and I'm literally, like I said, like nose up against the glass, like squinting, like because I can't see where that football went because it was so dark.
Now I'm just disappointed that Faith doesn't have a picture of Dom just leaning out the window with the Keon Sports banner right underneath him. Right? That would have been just our logo, I think, for the next couple of seasons.
That's what I was hoping for.
Well, she was too busy, in the first half in the middle of all the players. She wasn't staying on the outside. She was in the middle of their whole team. and one kid asked her to, in the middle of the game, take a picture of him and his buddy there on the sideline. So she's in the middle of their team there on the sideline, which is hilarious. And Dom's over there texting her like, get out from the middle of their team.
Vince, I'm looking for her because she did a game before that weeks ago. It was Medina and Olmsted, and I'm looking around like, where is she? I'm like looking for whatever color shirt she was wearing, and I'm looking, or she was a sweater, and I'm looking. All I see is her like behind the coach, like taking pictures. I'm like, she doesn't know better. I'm like, you gotta.
Was it
move.
Coach DeLuca or was it Coach Costello?
No, I think she was just behind a random coach. She was on Avon Lakeside.
See, now you got to be careful, Dom. You got to be careful.
I know.
She's not taking pictures of signs down there.
We don't have Connor Stallions at Keon Sports here. We don't have a Michigan scandal going on. She was taking pictures of the game. I went through all the photos. There was nothing going on fishy, okay?
Good. That Olmsted Falls press box, last game I've ever done play-by-play for high school football. Just try doing that in the rain on top of the tinted windows and top of a triple offense. On top of being a nervous wreck because it's our first game live, and top of everything else, I was about ready to die at the end of that night. So yeah,
poor Vince couldn't follow the football. He thought it was pitched and it was a keeper. It happened multiple times. Yeah, so it was a tough night though. It was a really tough night.
Up again, but all right. So Dom, you have played. What am I saying? No, you haven't. Okay, you've covered games for us as a writer. You've covered games for us as a radio guy. And now you've covered games for us as a YouTube TV guy. So you really, like Brandon, you've seen all three angles and Cole for that matter. What is your favorite stadium or stadiums to go, and what reasons?
Yeah, I'm gonna go off of high school real quick and say that probably my two favorite places I've ever been at. Notre Dame's number one. Being in that, I know we're talking high school, but Notre Dame, they trick you with the food. They give you hot dogs and chips in the beginning of the game, and you're like, what in the world? And Noah Hiles, who's the beat writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, said that because he rates food. And he's like, this is an F. Like, this is horrible. I said, just wait till the second half. It is like a Thanksgiving meal. It is phenomenal. It comes out. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where they're getting this food from. It comes out of nowhere. I mean, Akron's the same way. I mean, one second you're just eating chips and pretzels and popcorn, and next thing you know, there's chili cheese dogs everywhere. I don't know, but Ford Field, horrible food, but great place to watch football. It is an open press box. It's a dome, so it's an open press box. There's no window, so you can hear everything that's going on in the crowd, and it's just great. Just a great place to watch football. When it comes to high school, I don't think we talked about it. Brunswick has been phenomenal. Mm-hmm. We have our own room. We legit have our own really wide open room. Yeah. And people will walk through it, but they're really respectful about it. We have our one friend that's filming for the team, and he always talks. We know that we made a funny joke when we look over and we see him laughing.
Yep. It's usually you. Yes, it's usually you, but
but Brunswick's a great place to go. Olmsted Falls is great, other than when the parking lot is so full you have to go to the parking lot, take the transit.
Avon.
Yeah, I've never done. I've only been Avon once, and I don't remember a lick of it. I feel like I blacked out when we were at the.
Well, you probably did about black out, because didn't your phone die and you had to follow me?
Yeah, I know where I was going.
So yeah, you had to follow me all the way back to Berea.
Yeah, I had no idea where I was. Yeah, I mean, those are great places. Medina, the atmosphere is great, especially when Olentangy brings like the confetti launchers, and it scares me, and I fall out of my seat. That's always a good time. I don't think Vince knows about that. Every time Olentangy scored, it's on the broadcast, by the way. You hear me yell, "Whoa!" every time they shoot the confetti. Yeah. But I
first time he thought he was a goner. I'm not even joking, Vince. He thought he was a goner. He about fell out of that chair, and that confetti was flying right in front of us and landing on the soundboard.
You should have saw me at Akron this past Wednesday. They have the ROTC program. They have some of the members go down and they shoot like a Civil War cannon, right? I was right next to it when Akron scored their last 2 touchdowns. I almost fell over. I couldn't, my ears were ringing. It was like 100 confettis launchers were in my ear. It was horrible. But back to the actual point. You know, when it comes to playoff neutral site games, I feel like there's no true exciting place to play. Maybe I'm wrong because I didn't go to high school here. But like if you play at a high school, like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, I'm in Medina's locker room. Usually I'm in the away locker. Like, that's a cool concept. Like, we did that in high school with neutral site games at PA. But like, it was cool when you got to play like at Slippery Rock. There's no like Slippery Rock to play at here. You know, it also has a cool name. But like, there's no like D2 or D3 school that hosts a lot. I mean, I don't think John Carroll really hosts. Baltimore hasn't hosted in years, from what you guys told me. I don't know
COVID
what
year
D2s...
they did. I covered the last time they hosted the game. It was Ignatius versus Solon opening round, but that was the COVID year when like every school made the playoffs. So yeah,
it's so like I'm trying to think, and I know there's not too many schools right in this area. Some of them are probably a little bit of a travel away, but I can't think of a really cool venue for playoffs. There's not one where when I'm covering a game, I'm like, oh, I really hope I get to cover a game here. By the way, Barberton is a fantastic place to go. I've been there once. Would like to go there again, but in the future. But there's not that one place that's like a true neutral site. Like it's a non-high school stadium where I'm like, I bet that would be really cool to play there for the kids. Because Slippery Rock, it was awesome. We would pack the place. It's a big stadium. They have a weird hill. I don't know how to explain it. It's phenomenal. I mean, that was where your District 10 championship game was. We were playing at Slippery Rock. Other people, they're playing at State College or Heinz Field. We had Slippery Rock.
The Horseshoe would be, and I know Vince wants the state championships back there.
Loved it. That was one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. So you guys named a lot of great places. I got my list as well. I'll just start from the top here. Well, first of all, Cole kind of stole my thunder, but they Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, it is cool. There's a lot of history involved. Mm-hmm. You're so close to the Hall of Fame. You can see it the entire time you're sitting there. That is a lot of fun, and it does get cold. You know, it's us, Matt Gold, and Ryan Isley. So it's us, Cleveland.com, and Scoreboard Live. So we're all next to each other, and it's like, okay, well, they put the three of the more established outlets, I'll leave it at that, up front and center, which is nice. But Tim Stride, my man, if you're listening, move us back a row. It's freezing against that window.
Or space heaters. I mean, something.
It's cold.
It is cold, yeah.
Yep. So all joking aside, though, and I remember Lexi. Shout out to my our original intern, Alexis Wertha. I remember that was the one bit of advice I gave her. She was so nervous, and she asked me all these different questions. And I remember telling her dress warm, and she couldn't understand why. And she texted me after like 45 minutes. It was like, thank you. It's freezing in here. So just shout out to her. I was actually thinking about her today. Just she's doing so many big things. We absolutely just, she's awesome. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So Avon. So I wrote down a bunch of different reasons why. All right. So Avon, because of the environment. Love that. Hate the parking lot with a passion. I've actually skipped games there because I didn't want to deal with the parking lot. That situation is terrible, but the environment is awesome. Eric Frombach, the AD, is one of my favorites. He's incredible. They set you up. They feed you. They give you I mean, it's just, the place is great. I actually went and covered a girls lacrosse game this year just because it was being played at Avon Stadium. That's how much I like it there, and because I knew there wouldn't be any kind of parking situation when I was leaving. But regardless, so that Avon is just a great place. I love the Screaming Eagle after first downs. I love when they play jump around to begin the fourth quarter. Like I said, I think I've been there, whatever it is, 22 times or whatever. So definitely love it there. Okay, food. I could give you numerous different places. I like going to Avon Lake because of the pulled pork. I'm not even like a huge pulled pork kind of guy. Like if I have it once or twice a month, that's more than enough. But they are the greatest pulled pork sandwich makers. I don't know what they do. It's so good. Wrote an article about it, and the next, like I said, me and Cole were there. The very next week, they're bringing it up to the box. So really want to shout them out. Olmsted Falls because of the grass. Now I know they switched to artificial turf last year. But before that, they were one of the last places left with natural grass. It was just a cool atmosphere, especially later on. And the people are awesome. They're just awesome people. The family's there, the players there, the coaches there. Like I said a little bit earlier, Coach Luca is definitely one of my favorites. Bremen Park because of Carl Hamilton. Want to shout out Hambone. I call him Georgie. I won't get into that story, but he will know why. I love going to see Carl. He's my boy. We have gone to Thurston 10 numerous times for Bear and Wings, and I know you BW people probably know about Thurston 10 for sure. North Ridgeville, I agree with you guys. The room is incredible. You get a ton of room. I was covering a game earlier this year, and I think one of you guys said it. Sometimes you get your own room. That's one of the places that does that for media. Just incredible. So, and ironically enough, they were playing Bremen Park. So again, sat next to my boy Georgie, and we had a good night. This one you're going to find to be wild. Lakewood. And I'll say it because of this. Not a huge fan of the city. No offense, Brandon. But I don't go to Lakewood for many things. I hate the fact that everybody parks on the street. It makes my skin crawl.
You got to know the right parking spots, man. When I go to malls for the right concert, I know the right places to park. Park by the park, baby.
I just cannot stand the fact that everybody parks on the street. Regardless. So the reasons why I like the Lakewood Stadium itself, numerous reasons. One, they have the best cheeseburgers you're going to find. You can smell these puppies being made down the street. Two, their press box. So
why did you park down the street?
Yes. Yeah, you got to park. There's nowhere to park. That part of it sucks.
Vince, just park at my house next time. I'll drive you there, man.
Ryan Struhar lives right across the street.
Oh, Ryan Struhar does?
I know because I pick him up every time we work an event together.
I might do it because there's nowhere to park. So, but as I was saying though, people who have been there would understand what I'm about to say. They're underneath. Okay, so like the stadium where the it's so hard to describe, but the way their bowl's set up, it's the floor is underneath. Like the field is underneath. So
it's like Michigan. Where it's in the ground, yeah.
So, like when you go to the press box, there's no stand, there's no like large group. It's one flight of stairs, and it's small. It's like 6 steps. So you open up the door right next to the concession stand, which is hilarious because you have the bathroom, the concession stand, and everybody's like slammed in there. You open up the door like it's a secret door, like only the media people know about it, and you go right up. The only time that ever backfired is when I fell last year and twisted my ankle.
Yep.
Which was probably one of the most embarrassing things of all time. But outside of when that happened, it's a really cool environment. But my favorite reason to cover a game, a St. Ed's game, I should say, is they use the Cleveland Browns announcer. So the same voice you hear during a Browns game that says third down and all that stuff and first down, all that, that's the same guy. So he is the St. Ed's PA announcer. I never knew that until a couple years ago when I started covering them. It's just it's a really cool feeling because if it's a bigger game, you hear his voice. There you go. Westlake, I want to shout out this year. Their athletic director, Nick Ronaldo, made me feel like a celebrity every time I was there. So the Westlake press box is really small. You guys will probably never be able to do a game there. Just telling you. There's no room. So, but the really cool thing about it is he gave me my own little cubicle. So every time I was there, if you could picture this, there's me all by myself in the corner, right? And he had it all marked off. Keon Sports.
You had a cubicle?
It was like a cubicle. Because
could you see out of that?
What was that?
Could you see out of that?
Yes, it was a clear shot of the field and everything.
Okay.
So I'm like in this corner, like cubicle looking thing, all by myself, and it was had all kinds of room. They have food from the second you get there. He takes care of you, food, water. Comes, Nick would sit down next to me at halftime. I give him the stats, he tweet him out. Just a good dude. Westlakes High School is 8 minutes from my house. Enjoy it. But my two favorite, here they are. After all that. So 2 stadiums that if there's a playoff game being played there, pretty much no matter who's playing, I want to go. That's Bedford and Brunswick. 2 very different reasons. Bedford, enormous. It's 10 times nicer than George Finney. It's like going to an actual D1 college stadium. The place is huge. The press box is gigantic. I mean, it's way bigger than anything you guys have ever experienced. Bedford Bearcat Stadium. They serve you food the entire game. There's candy they pass out. There's the stat. They have stats people there handing out stats all game long. It's unbelievable. They literally have a coffee machine in there and a refrigerator in there. And then midway through the third quarter, the guy who runs the press box, his wife comes in with ice cream treats for everybody. They bring up hot dogs. Like you don't have to eat. Like if you know you're going to cover a playoff game at Bedford Bearcat Stadium, don't eat that day because it's a buffet all night long. It's warm in there. Yeah, I'm claustrophobic. A little thing out there for everybody who didn't know that. I'm a little bit claustrophobic. So there's a ton of room, right? You don't have to worry about anything. It's great. And then obviously Brunswick. Have to agree with you guys. Brunswick, especially when it's cold outside, because they keep that away box piping hot. I mean, you walk in there, it's warm. You can take off your coat or your hoodie. And high-speed internet. You're sitting there. You got a ton of room. They always had the little Keon Sports area for us. I know when I'm by myself, again, being the claustrophobia thing, it has a ton of room that I could actually relax and enjoy the game. So definitely want to shout out Brunswick. I think I heard all 4 of us say Brunswick, and definitely a reason for that. Okay, so Dom, we are back to you. We heard about Brandon's favorite moment of the season, the unexpected Holy Name versus Normandy Classic. Cole, very heartfelt last week, and like we said, we all agreed having Brandon on the broadcast this year was awesome. Mm-hmm. And now, Dom, what was your favorite moments of the broadcast season?
Yeah, I just have 2 I want to touch on. I won't spend too much time on either. My favorite game I think we covered was Medina versus Olentangy. That was the most views we had by far. Nearly 2,000, I do believe. We had a lot of interaction on the live feed, some for better, some for worse, certainly for sure. But that game when we walked in, it had big game, big school atmosphere. And that's really all you can ask for. And even I've been in games, I've attended games where the schools aren't that big, but it gives you big game atmosphere. And these schools are certainly big schools, and they lived up to the hype. It was very fun. You could really hear the emotion, the crowd, the environment was probably the best we had all year for sure.
Yeah.
That was a really fun game. That was probably the most fun I had all year calling a game. Mm-hmm. But one thing I do want to touch on is just the moments before games are my favorite. My first year when it was just me and Cole, my second year with when Brandon joined us, and this year especially, where we definitely have all gelled together and become, I would say, close friends to a point. And me and Cole became friends our first year. I really got to know Brandon last year pretty well, and we started talking a lot. But this year, it's just everything was clicking. Brandon would do the voice checks before, and I would mess with it so we could never get a correct read, and then I couldn't tell if he was getting actually.
Go ahead.
You have to do it now, Dom. You painted yourself in a corner.
She left me roses by the stairs.
Yep, that was our mic check.
Every time. I got always. 10 weeks of that. 10 weeks.
So that stemmed from a movie that I watched. What was it? Adam Devine, the actor, kept singing that in the movie. It was not a good movie. I don't remember what it was, and it was just stuck in my head all week. And then I'm like, Friday, I kept singing it, and Brandon's like, "What are you singing?" And then we did the voice check, and I said it. I think that might have been North Ridgeville and North Royalton is when I debuted that. But it was moments like that. We had jokes that we bring out halftime. When Holy Name, the band came out with the NFL theme song on Fox. Is that what it was?
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was Fox's NFL theme song. Yeah.
And it was really good. It was very unexpected. But what got us is that they probably have about 15 people in the band. It's not a very big band, and they do a very good job for how small they are. But I just was not expecting a very horned, heavy NFL Fox theme song. I mean, again, they did a great job. And me and Cole together, and Brandon tries to reel us in, and then he ends up laughing. So it's just those moments. And then Vince, you'll end up texting us something absurd. So
Usually,
yeah, I think my internet started going away a little bit there, but
No, but you caught up though. That was the best part. It
it
was great. We heard everything, but we heard about 30 seconds of dialogue in about 5. So that was
good. That's the way it's supposed to be. No, I said I'll leave it short. I left it all along, but yeah, I just enjoyed the moments before games. It cracked me up, especially before every game. Brendan would always ask if we needed something from the concession stand, and then the one time I asked him for a pizza because I thought I was going to pass out. And I wasn't actually going to pass out. I was starting to get hangry. So Brandon saved me from being hangry on the call.
Well, guys, it's been another fun trip around high school football with you this season and throughout these podcasts. I am notorious for trying to compliment someone, and it turns out that I'm complimenting myself. So if I'm about to do that again, I apologize, because that's not what I'm trying to do here. But Cole's like, he's right. He does that all the time. But
At least you're aware.
Yeah, right? Egomaniac. No, all joking aside, I started exercising about a year ago. I'm not getting into the whole story. Regardless. So what I like to do, I'm not joking, at least once a week when I'm exercising and I'm not moving for like an hour or so, I'm moving, but I'm not going anywhere, is I will put whatever game you just called on my phone and watch it as I'm working out or exercising or whatever. And by doing that, it was just so cool because I wasn't watching you guys as your boss. I wasn't watching you guys as Vince McKee, Key on Sports. I was watching you guys as a fan. You know what I mean? And after the second or third week, it was something I really, really started to look forward to. So just want to shout you guys again. It was great. I would easily say I agree with all of you. That Medina atmosphere, you could feel it through the phone. I mean, that game against Olentangy was unbelievable. There was something about the energy in that crowd. That was great. Obviously, the third week with the walk-off field goal was big. I love the Normandy Classic. I like that. The last game you guys called, I believe it was week 10, Wadsworth. So there were a lot of good ones out there. We had some clunkers along the way. You can't predict a 37-0 blowout. Who knows that's going to happen? But for the most part, most of the games were good. And you guys, no matter what the score was, you kept it interesting. I appreciate you having the sponsors on at halftime a few times there as well. So definitely enjoyed it, man. Definitely enjoyed it. So that being said, Dom, you are a big time wrestling fan like myself. Huge into it. We both are. Probably way too much. I'm sitting here with a wrestling coffee cup and a wrestling water bottle at the same time. And there's a term in wrestling that's called gimmick. We're very familiar with gimmick, right? So I'm going to ask your permission for gimmick infringement. You came out with your all grit team. I would love to do like a year-end all-warrior team with the players that I got to see, but I'm not going to do it without your permission. So am I allowed to have an all-warrior team?
Charge them.
So
set a price.
I can't do it. So is this players that you like the teams that
Yes.
you saw?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
As
for the
long
week
as
we
it's,
saw-
as long as it's not like that the ones that we saw, because I feel like it would just be the same list.
we didn't have many crossovers. So
No, we didn't. No, that's
that's the
fine.
other thing. Like I covered Holy Name twice, Ridgeville twice, Berea twice, but for the most part, I mean, I never covered Medina, never covered Wadsworth, never, several Brunswick, never. And I think I can make it unique and interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. I think I'm going to do that. So for everybody listening, that would probably come out the week before states. It's strictly going to be like a year in review, week by week of what I saw and who the Warriors on the field were that night that jumped out. It could be anybody. It could be a parent of a player. It could be the players. It could be the refs. It could be, in one situation, a medical team that helped the kid beyond belief. So not going to get into all that right now, but I'm going to make it interesting, and I really think you guys will enjoy it. So that will really pretty much do it for this week.